You know, a global crisis is getting serious when one narrow strip of water suddenly controls the mood of the entire world economy. And right now, that strip is the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil supply moves through this tiny route. Not 10, not 5, 20%. Now imagine this route getting practically shut down during a military conflict between the United States and Iran. That is exactly what happened. And suddenly oil prices exploded global markets, panicked cargo ships got trapped, and investors everywhere started asking one terrifying question. What happens if the world's oil artery stops pumping? According to the Reuters report, Iran effectively sealed off the Strait of Hormuz by threatening mines, drones, missiles, and fast attack boats. The United States responded aggressively. American forces started escorting commercial ships through the strait under a military operation. Think about how crazy this situation became. Normal cargo ships were now moving with military protection inside one of the world's most important oil corridors. That sounds less like global trade and more like a war movie with trillion-dollar consequences. But then came the twist nobody expected. Donald Trump suddenly announced a temporary pause in the escort operation, claiming there had been great progress toward a possible agreement with Iran. And the market reacted instantly. U.S. crude oil futures dropped by $2.3, falling below the psychologically important $100 per barrel mark. That single statement erased panic from the market for a moment. Because oil is not just fuel. Oil controls transportation, manufacturing, food prices, inflation, and even elections. When oil rises sharply, governments start sweating. And this crisis is already becoming political pressure for the U.S. administration ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. Now here's where things become even more dangerous. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio claimed America had already achieved its military objectives in the campaign, called Operation Epic Fury. But at the same time, Iran still has more than 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium that has not been handed over. That means the biggest fear behind this entire conflict has not disappeared. It is simply paused. And markets hate uncertainty more than bad news itself. Meanwhile, there was another shocking development. Britain's Maritime Trade Operations Agency reported that a cargo vessel was struck by a projectile inside the strait. Imagine being a shipping company right now. Your ships are stuck. Insurance costs are exploding, routes are dangerous, and every delay affects global supply chains. This is how regional wars slowly become global economic problems. One blocked route, one missile, one tanker attack, and suddenly, inflation hits households thousands of kilometers away. Even the IMF warned that even if the conflict ended immediately, it could still take 3 to 4 months for the world economy to recover from the damage. That line should scare investors. Because financial markets move fast, but economic recovery moves painfully slow. And while governments speak about diplomacy, the battlefield is still active. The UAE reported missile and drone attacks for a second straight day, calling it a serious escalation and reserving the right to respond. Iran denied attacking the UAE, which means the region is now entering the most dangerous phase. Any conflict can enter confusion, and confusion creates volatility. Now here's the bigger WealthyKlick's lesson hidden behind all this chaos. Most people think global wealth is controlled only by companies. But sometimes wealth is controlled by geography. A tiny water route between Iran and Oman can influence petrol prices in India, inflation in Europe, shipping costs in China, and stock markets in America. That is how interconnected modern money has become. And smart investors watch these global pressure points before the headlines fully explode. Because by the time television debates become loud, the markets usually react first. Right now, the ceasefire technically holds, but even U.S. officials admitted they are watching the situation very, very closely, which means this story is far from over. One failed negotiation, one attack, or one tanker explosion could send oil flying again. And if that happens, the next shock may not begin in the Middle East. It may begin in ordinary people's wallets. The world is not just watching a military conflict anymore. It is watching a battle over energy, inflation, trade, and economic control. And somewhere behind all the diplomacy, markets are quietly asking one question: is this peace, or just an intermission before the next economic storm? If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more powerful stories about money, markets, global business, and the decisions shaping the world economy, make sure you subscribe to WealthyKlicks. This channel is not just about headlines. It is about understanding the forces quietly changing your future before everyone else notices them. And if you made it till the end of this video, thank you.